thank you very much for making it to the first Exploring Forest Resilience webinar this year, which is organized by ONEforest and the RESONATE project. Yeah, we will continue with this series throughout the year. And we're looking forward also to having more presenters from your site. Hi, Raquel, nice to see you. my co-moderator for today. And today we have a presentation from Annechien Hoeben from the University of Graz and a PhD fellow in RESONATE. And she will present us today an analysis of innovation measures to enhance climate change adaptation in the forest-based sector. And yeah, we're looking forward to your presentation.
Yeah, so beforehand, I want to make a short comment. So the paper that I'm going to present is under review now, which means that quite some things are going to be changing a little bit. And I tried to already integrate that in this presentation, but of course, I'm not sure if it will change that way and if it will remain that way. So this is maybe some side note to my presentation. Maybe in the discussion round, this will also come up to some extent. Yeah, I will share my screen. And since it's a TED Talk, I also changed it a little bit from the original scientific presentation, which of course comes very natural to me, to a TED Talk style. Yeah, so I will try. So what I'm presenting is Work Package 3's conceptual framework of innovation along the wood value chain. And innovation in this paper is seen as a means to enhance climate adaptation, and it's also often seen as a silver bullet, but innovation is such a broad term that we cannot use it as a silver bullet. We need to know what it means exactly and what it means along the value chain in each step. So this is what I'm going to present. And then first of all, okay, we all know that climate change threatens the ecological resilience of forests worldwide and also in Europe. And this is also, I think, what ONEforest is tackling, and it's definitely what RESONATE is tackling. And in this regard, there are also 4 resilience challenges that we set. One is that there is an increasing risk for natural disturbances, such as bark beetle outbreaks or windrow events, forest fires, droughts, etc. And a second resilience challenge is the adapting tree species suitability. Of course, if the climate is getting warmer, not every tree fits in every region anymore. And this is also a big problem we see here in Austria, where we have traditionally spruce forest, planted spruce forests, also in the lower regions and not only above the alpine tree line. And this leads to a lot of problems. A third challenge is that there's also a changing societal demand because of the sustainability transition and the growing bioeconomy. And at this point, this is maybe not, and as we know from the value chain work package, this societal demand is not always in synergy with the changing tree species suitability in the forest. And lastly, there is also biodiversity decline as a further resilience challenge. So around, I think 2 months ago, the World Nature Fund published another biodiversity report, and the situation is just looking poorer and poorer. And then the challenge is that we need to enhance resilience in the forest to tackle these 4 resilience challenges. And therefore, we need to know what resilience is exactly. And this was also presented by Laura in the first TED Talk. And this is, she wrote a paper in 2020 on what resilience is exactly. And she looked at around 200 papers, and she did a literature review and found how resilience is defined in forest science literature. And basically what we see here at the inside, we have engineering resilience, which is the capacity of, in this case, a forest, but any kind of ecological system to return to its original state after disturbance. So it can be kind of seen as the time it takes from a system to return to the original state after disturbance. And then around that, there's the ecological resilience. And the ecological resilience basically entails that a system might transform into another stable ecological system under global environmental conditions. And around that, there's the socio-ecological resilience, which means that we as humans are kind of defining the system around the ecological and engineering resilience to make or to remain the forest or any kind of ecological system resilient. Yeah, and then actually last year, the European Forest Institute added 2 other factors which are important for resilience or a forest that is adapted to climate change or any kind of ecological system. And they, next to resilience, they also added the adaptive capacity and the term resistance. And now it gets a little bit complicated. So I made a little analogy. So here we've got basically a basic definition of resilience. It would mean that if there's a disturbance, the ball goes from a stable position in the value from the resilient system a little bit up to some kind of disturbed state. Do you see my mouse, by the way? Yeah, cool. To some kind of disturbed state back to the normal state. And then the term resistance comes in. The term resistance means that this ball even resists to move at all. So because of a disturbance, the ball would not move up the hill. It would remain where it is. And then there's the term adaptive capacity. And this means that the ecological system will change its identity in a way to even withstand the changes. So this is then a step further than resistance in a way. And then there is the engineering resilience, the middle ball in the chart that Laura made. And this can be considered as the steepness of the hill. So how difficult it is for the ball to move upwards after its disturbance, because of course, if a hill is steeper, the ball would be less hit by this disturbance. And as I said before, therefore, it's also the time that it takes for the ecological system to return to its original state. If the hill is very steep, so if there's a lot of engineering resilience, the ball would be very fast in its original state. Then there's the ecological resilience, which I also already mentioned before, which is the time it takes from one ecological system, one resilient ecological system under global change to change into one other ecological resilient system. And therefore, the ball is now at another position in the valley. And then there's socio-ecological resilience, which can then be seen as the conditions we build around the system to make it remaining in the stable position that it is. And this is where the problem starts, because in this socio-ecological resilience, we have quite a lot of knowledge on ecological resilience in the forest. But we don't have so much knowledge on the resilience that we build around it, the system that we have. We don't have this value chain resilience. And this can also be found in a paper from Sousa Silva et al. In 2018, where they basically asked forest managers around Europe, and also in combination with this value chain perspective, if they're adapting their management practices. And what they found is that this is basically not the case. Only 25% adapted their management practices. And to adapt this socio-ecological system, I wanted to explain this first. So when I'm talking about the wood value chain, I'm talking about this wood value chain as we established it in RESONATE, which means that we first have a phase of forest management with tree nursery, carbon storage, the production of non-wood forest products, but also wood forest products. And from this forest management, we move into the primary products, which is the sawmills, the pulp mills, the sawmills and the pulp mills where the wood is being processed. And from that, we go to secondary products, such as, for example, furniture or applications in construction, this kind of things. And then in the last steps, we've got some recycling going on and a thermal power plant, so where energy is produced. So this is what I mean when I talk about resilience in the forest value chain and this ecological this socio-ecological resilience, which hangs together with that a lot. And that said, when we're talking about this socio-ecological resilience and forest value chains, there's always this one silver bullet that comes forward in all papers, and that is innovation. But we don't know what innovation means. It's such a broad term. Is it a new thing? Is it not a new thing? Is it something that was already implemented elsewhere, but that now also is being implemented maybe in other locations? And also, we don't know where this innovation occurs along the forest value chain. The innovations that we do in forest management, for example, adding tree species that are better adapted to climate change or adding mixed forestry, are very different than the innovations that we do in like secondary processing or primary processing, where we now have all these new lignine products or breaking the forest fibers into tiny crystals so that they can be used or enhanced for certain bioplastic applications. These are very different kind of innovations. So my paper is the goal was to better understand innovation along the wood value chains and to evaluate to which extent and in what way they enhance resilience. And I also wanted to know if innovations at the beginning of the value chain are in synergy with innovations at the end of the value chain. So that said, I wanted to combine innovation with resilience and with the value chain. And I did a literature research of around 150 papers to see where innovation occurs along the value chain and what kind of innovation it is. And based on that, I established innovation pathways. So different pathways of innovation that also have different capacities to enhance the resilience and enhance resilience through different pathways. But to find this overlap between these three figures, I had to add some elements from the innovation literature. And in innovation literature, there has been attention paid to the idea of resilience and how innovations can enhance resilience. And basically that is through three drivers or three pushers. And this is diversification, flexibility, and efficiency. And basically we want to come out here in the middle of the circle, right? We want to have the best overlap between adaptive capacity, resistance, and resilience. And therefore these pushers are at the corner. I'm still adapting this figure, but I thought I'd put it in anyway. And in this case, diversification means that we have enough innovations or enough parts of a system that if one part of a system collapses, another part can take over. And that's why we need to have this spread out, diversified system components. And then there is the component of flexibility. So when there is any type of disturbance in a system, the system needs to be flexible enough to respond to something. And if we apply this to the wood value chain, for example, in the case of forest disturbances, there is either oversupply or undersupply. And a system needs to be flexible enough to both work in times of undersupply and to work in times of oversupply. And the third component is efficiency. And this one, of course, makes sense. We also don't want to have too many system components so that it all takes too much human, natural, or technical or monetary capacity. So a system also needs to be efficient to be resilient. So these are the three pushers that come from the innovation literature. Now, if we merge that all together in a pot and we boil it, then this is what comes out of it. And this is also the final figure in my paper. And these are the 9 innovation pathways that I established and how they enhance resilience. So I'm not going to talk you through it. Wait, is it big enough? This is now on. Okay, great. So what we see here is a little legend. We have a blue triangle if it strengthens socioeconomic resilience. And in my understanding, this is called value chain resilience in a way, but we are now changing it a little bit in the review, but didn't have time to change this figure yet. So the blue triangles are value chain resilience, and the green triangles are ecological resilience. So the resilience in the forest. And then if they are a little bit smaller, then it means that it's indirectly strengthened and not directly strengthened by the innovation, so that the innovation leads to another innovation and therefore it is strengthened. And then we have the D stands for diversification, the E stands for efficiency, and the F stands for flexibility. So now that we are starting at the first innovation at the beginning of the value chain, we have innovations towards mixed structure-rich forestry. And this is obviously a diversification innovation because we diversify the forest so that if one part of the forest fails, for example, a spruce forest that is under a bark beetle attack, then another component of the system can take over. And this would strengthen both ecological and socioeconomic resilience. And this is coming from the idea that there has been some literature on the fact that a mixed forest often leads to more economic income, although it's not always the case. So that's, of course, in the paper, there's a lot more discussion points that I'm going to skip over now. The second innovation would be technology-driven silvicultural innovations. And this is, for example, the use of new harvesting operations or the use of new kinds of tree nursery. And this is an innovation that stimulates efficiency. So the system becomes more efficient and we have better ways to grow new trees or to harvest trees and to also not damage the surroundings while we harvest trees. And also this, since the system becomes more efficient, there's also often this value chain resilience perspective. Then innovation strengthening forest recreation. This is a diversifying of your ecosystem services, but it has not been found to strengthen either the resilience of the ecological system, although often a diversified forest is considered more beautiful for recreation and therefore it's more resilient. So this is like this indirect ecological resilience. And it has also not been found to lead to more value chain resilience or to more economic income in any way. However, there is this strengthened socioeconomic resilience because you do diversify in a way your business model. But this is also only indirectly and also not proven in every paper. Then the fourth one is innovative payment for ecosystem services schemes. So the idea that we let certain parts of the forest grow and we get ecosystem payments for it instead of direct payments for example, wood harvest. The fifth innovation pathway is innovations to extend the product portfolio beyond wood. And this is something that is very little done in Central Europe, but quite a lot done in the south of Europe, where, for example, there is either chestnut production or cork or mushroom harvesting schemes or berry picking schemes. And this is also a way to diversify your business model. And although it has been found to strengthen value chain resilience because it leads to more economic income and more spread income, it is not found to strengthen ecological resilience. Then the sixth pathway, it's up here, which is just to make the figure a bit more pretty, instead that we go down and up, but okay. There's innovations towards co-management and joint forest ownership. And this is an innovation that the management of a forest is either, for example, meant by a community or that forest owners join hands and share their harvesting infrastructure together. And here we already go a little bit into the value chain because harvesters or skidders or sawmills, like if they join forces, then we already go into the value chain. And this strengthens efficiency and flexibility and socioeconomic and ecological resilience because it has been found that multiple forest owners have multiple ideas, they can share their knowledge, and therefore they are more flexible, they are more efficient, and they have better forest management in a way. Then there's pathway 7, innovations towards circularity and end-of-life management. And this comes down to the downcycling of wood, the efficient downcycling of wood. And then there's pathway 8, innovations to enhance the product portfolio with high value products. And this is this one is also interesting in a way because it's not the opposite necessarily of downcycling. It doesn't mean upcycling. It just means that we now have this low bulk, high value products such as lignin or certain wood crystals that we use in higher value applications. And then the 9th pathway is innovative approaches to sales and marketing. So over the last years, we have now, for example, wood auctions that are becoming new or forest e-shops, which weren't there before. And this is also efficiency, flexibility, and strengthened social, ecological, or value chain resilience. Now, going on to the discussion points of this, and I'm also very excited to discuss with you guys about this. We can discuss these pathways based on 3 grounds. We can discuss them on where they occur in the value chain, which resilience they strengthen, and through which innovation driver they do so. And then a first very big discussion point, and also the main outcome of my paper, is that these pathways rarely cross the boundaries of the forest management primary products and secondary products. So except for maybe these here and these here, they don't cross each other. And this wouldn't be a problem if we didn't find that value chain resilience at the beginning of the value chain and at the end of the value chain are driven by very different ideas. So for example, here we see a lot of diversification pathways, where here we see a lot of efficiency pathways. And diversification and efficiency doesn't always go hand in hand. Because if we diversify a forest, we often add complexity. And if we diversify a value chain or forest operations or any kind of operations in sawmills, we also add complexity. And efficiency is in a way associated with a reduction of this complexity. This is making it, of course, very difficult. And what we also see is that the forest is already at least quite far in thinking how to adapt itself, but the value chain is not necessarily following that. And then in another deliverable in RESONATE, we also found that there's markets that are driven by demand. So there is this drive coming from the secondary product, and then somehow resilience has to be pushed from the demand side. But there's also markets where it's driven from the supply side. So we see a mismatch between innovation at the beginning of the value chain and at the end of the value chain. And there's what I found out 3 ways how we can deal with that. We can at least try. And one is to focus on flexibility. So knowing when you enhance efficiency and knowing when you enhance diversification, and also being flexible to act upon that given the situation. Another one is following this open innovation approach. Open innovation or participatory innovation has been found to be a driver for successful innovation. And of course, this is also maybe considered a little bit of a silver bullet, and somebody else can write a paper about that silver bullet, but it's still what I found in most of the papers. And lastly, mitigation could be a way to solve this mismatch, because this is all focused on adaptation of value chain resilience. But there's also the climate change part of mitigation and the efforts to do climate smart forestry, where we adapt the forest management already to the purpose of the changing societal demand. And then there's a lot of ideas from the climate smart forestry that could also help. And yeah, I think that was it from my side. If you're also interested in a scientific presentation, I could also do that one. But yeah, this was it from my side now.